So my first video, I was mentioning how important psychology is. And for me, it's probably at the 35, 40% level. It's probably half of what I do. Especially in the beginning, it became so important because depending on how you feel about what's going on as far as your drawdown, as far as your wins are concerned, it either is a little bit of a setback or can actually make you persist a little bit longer. And in this game, you need that time to get the experience. So I always tell people just protect your psychology because it's like so important. Now, if you're this person that basically is, going into a Robinhood account and setting up a long-term investing program, or maybe, it's a hobby and you're actually taking a flyer on a spec, I mean, that's not really a big deal. But if you're actually this small or intermediate trader that's just starting out and, you really want to actually create this lifestyle, you kind of want to take your time because, you know, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I heard there's a statement that most people could take less than one risk. I don't know how they would come up with that. It seems kind of odd to me, but I kind of figured collectively they took 100 people, and out of the 100, maybe only two or three take risk, and maybe one takes excessive risk, and the others take zero, and maybe that's how they come up with less than one. I'm not really sure how they do that, but at the same time, you have to be in this position of where you don't mind or you can handle that adversity. So I remember I was in the trading room and at one time, it was about 23 years ago when they first actually came out with the software that you could trade remotely. And what happened, I think the company's name was Tradescape. And the sponsors would, obviously thought you were a decent person and maybe that you could make some money for them. So they'd ask you if you want to actually come into the room and trade. And a lot of these kids were, maybe 20, 25 years old. And man, full of adrenaline, testosterone, and super cocky. And, and some of them were actually very, very, very smart. And what happened is that, man, they'd go on a simulator for 3 months, but then they'd go live with cash and they would lose their mind. It was the fun, and it wasn't funny actually at all, but it was, just interesting to see. They would go through their accounts in 1, 2, 3 months. And what happened is sponsors would actually sponsor you with $25,000 worth of money, and it would margin obviously to $50,000. So it was sad to see them rip through it so fast when it was so unnecessary. But, I guess they were just trying to find out if they can, live the dream, because there were some people in the room that were able to pull off. Man, they'd be getting $5,000-$10,000 a day, and it was pretty amazing how they did that. I basically started very small, and this is what I say to people that are starting out in this business too, obviously, because the commissions now on a retail level are actually very small. Back then, it was a commercial level, so then we were offered to us very, the commissions were small, so you could do this. You were in and out 25 to 100 times a day. I traded Nextel, and I started out, on a simulator, and after a year, I was down about 15,000 probably, and then after a year, I got it all back, and I was neutral and started making my 102 miles a day. And the sponsors really wanted me to push it harder, and I just didn't have it in me. It wasn't my character to actually do that, but I tried, and it just, again, it was my psychology. My psychology wasn't cut out to actually trade at that level, to trade with that intensity. And within my first or second trade, I lost $1,000. And I said, you know what? I made your money back. I don't really want to do this anymore. And they basically said the same thing. We'd, like you, to actually give up your seat to the next person. And so I did. So it was fine. But then since then, I actually had to, reconfigure myself because the training back then was really non-existent. It was a level 2 screen, and I really didn't know what I was doing. So I started having to train myself. And this is pretty much before YouTube videos and everybody pretty much maybe giving away some secrets. And I read a lot of blogs and books, and nobody really gave away a lot. And everybody's talking about an edge, but I just couldn't find an edge. And every so often I read about one, and it didn't work for me for whatever reason why. But I'll get into that some other time. But for right now is that when I started actually trading, I actually used, again, I went to a simulator, started making some money that way, seemed like it made some sense, and I moved forward to a cash account. Now, the cash account, again, I kept small. I didn't day trade, so I didn't need maybe to keep $25,000 in there. I forget, maybe I did. I'm not really too sure at the time. But I would actually just go for $10 or $20 wins. It wasn't had to be done in a day. It didn't have to be done in like 2 days, but a week or whatever. It would be basically whatever time I felt that I wanted to actually stay in the trade based upon what I was using at the time. Maybe it was charting. Maybe it was some type of stochastic or MACD or, RSI. I don't remember what I was using when I first started out. But the small wins were really very important to me to get my psychology where it needed to be, to feel that, I'll be able to pull this off going down the road. And what's so beautiful now is that the wins can be very small. All right, so you don't have to worry about actually making, so much money in order to cover, because if you go back like 30, 40 years, the lots were basically $50 to $100 to make a trade. So the amount of money you had to make or the amount of shares you had to buy didn't lend itself to actually have, a trading account, to what we're talking about today. So what I would recommend you doing is that actually incentivizing your win, actually place an incentive of some sort. So for me, maybe it was food, because coming from an Italian family, we never really ate out that much when I was a kid. I remember we'd go down the shore for our summer week vacation, and my father would take us to Perkins Pancake House, and that was really what we had to look forward to. I'm not going to say it didn't happen any times during the year. Like they would treat us to McDonald's before, when it first came out in 1970s or something like that, and that was a trip and a treat. But at the same time, my mom cooked so well, and it was, we just had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home, so I wasn't used to it. Then when I moved out, the same thing. So I always incentivize in the beginning, especially my wins, with, wow, I get to eat out. I get to, make $20, $25. I can eat out. And, I talk to some kids now doing, they think that's ridiculous, and they want to make, hundreds or thousands. But then I see they blow their accounts. So, that's how I start, and everybody starts differently. I'm just giving you a point of view, because in other words, I just think if you take the simulator and or this cash account serious with the small numbers, you'll take it serious with the big numbers. So I shoot, and I find that if I make believe that that target's an animal and I could injure it versus just it's a target, I'm going to take it much more serious. So now all of a sudden I'll go through my rules actually as I'm going through the process of pulling the trigger, or obviously releasing the string, whatever it may be. And that's the same thing you want to do with your trading. Make sure, no matter how small it is, make sure you're trading it like it's a big account. So then when you do a big account, it really isn't that much of a transition, because each of these steps is a transition. So if you're transitioning from, maybe a dinner out, then a hotel room, then maybe a week away, then maybe a car. Now I'm actually thinking, well, if I get this win, maybe I'll want to build a little cabin someplace on some acreage. So each time it keeps on changing and transitioning. So if you could do that, I just think that might be a way to actually move your psychology into this game slowly, so you don't hurt yourself. All right. So thank you very much.